the editor all object. Right, I have a little note above here and some region markers. So we're gonna call it. This is going to be the variable name in the code. So whenever you see this, that's exactly, you'll know what the object is. So I'm trying to do kind of a very I'm trying to do a thing where, since we are in an untyped language, and also just because of how stringent I'm being, the variable name, the definition for this variable name includes the type, as well as the name, if that makes sense. So the type information and the variable name are both encoded in the variable name. That sounds kind of cyclical, but basically, I try to keep all my variable names as unique as possible and terse, so that if I want to look up what this means, it always means the same thing. And eventually we'll run out of variable names, I assume. We'll see when we hit a name crisis. But for now, I haven't hit a name crisis. Also, things can be quite contextual as well. So we'll see how this works out. Okay, so we have this editor all class, right? This is just the constructor function. And all it does is it wraps the new keyword. That's the only real purpose for it, so that when we are kind of transcribing this into C code later, we have a nice little abstraction where we could write a new editor all function, and then within it we could have some type of struct initialization that's like C style instead of this JavaScript style, which is also kind of C++ style because it is the new keyword. But anyways, the editor all, we have the only publicly exposed function right now, and I don't think there will ever be any other publicly exposed function that I know of, is the read event function. And within the read event function, it will take the global event object. First thing we want to do is decide if it is a keyboard event or a mouse event. Notice that there is no or if else here, because it could be both. And I want to make sure that is communicated. Thus we have a comment, because the event could simultaneously be both a keyboard event and a mouse event at the same time. So if it is a keyboard event, we'll use our keyboard handler, and if it is a mouse event, we will handle mouse. Now, I don't know what the implications of handling keyboard before mouse or mouse before keyboard. Not going to worry about it. Things need to be done in a linear order. So we're just going to have to play favorites and decide that the keyboard gets first dibs. Once both the keyboard event handlers and the mouse event handlers have had a chance to run, then we're going to mark the event as consumed, and then we are going to wipe all of the data. Technically, we don't have to wipe all the data. We could just mark the event as consumed, but for just in case we're screwing stuff up, we should probably just wipe the data, because that's going to make it easier to find mistakes. Because if all the flags for what type of event it is get reset to 0, then all of our code should assume that all of the data is junk data and invalid and not use it. But just in case, we are going to wipe this, and then later, after we're trying to optimize things, maybe we'll comment that out. But for now, we're going to keep that in. Nothing as permanent as a temporary change, so we'll see what happens there. Okay, what's another thing I want to say? Oh, so as far as handling the keyboard event and handling the mouse event, these handlers will try to route the event to whatever editor is currently in control. So right now we are in the master editor, right, the editor all, and it's going to hand off the event to whatever editor currently has authority. So we want to make sure that everything that should be given a chance to look at this global event gets to look at it through these function calls, and then that way, because we do not want to invalidate the global event object until every editor that has had a chance to look at it, right? Because once we mark this event as consumed, we've destroyed the event, and we need to wait till the next event cycle to have anything to work with. So we don't want to basically burn the message before everything has gotten a chance to read it. Okay, so is keyboard event. All we're gonna do is, and I separated this into a variable just so that in the debugger I can make sure that the bitwise logic is correct here. We're going to look at the global data dot event bits and the event type key, and we're going to bitwise and it with the global event dot event type, so the main event type. And if the result of that is non-zero, it means that this bit here was set in this data here, right? And that means that this global event is counted as a keyboard event. And same deal with the mouse event. So we're going to take the global data dot event bit dot event type mouse, and we're going to do a bitwise and with the global event dot event type bit mask, or not bit mask, but bit flags, right? This is just a collection of a whole bunch of different bit flags that tell us what categorizations the global event falls within. And we're going to take this array of bits and we're going to bitwise and it with the mouse event bit, and if that ends up non-zero, then it is also a mouse event. Okay, so let's scroll back up here. So with JavaScript and a lot of C-like languages, right? Because if the expression is non-zero, it's assumed to be true, and that's why this logic is going to work out all right, even though we're not returning a true or false, we're returning a number, right? That's probably obvious to some of you, but I just wanted to hit on that. Okay, so handle event key and then handle event mouse, right? And these get called depending on if we detected it was the mouse event or the keyboard event or both. And right now we're just going to log the object with a little tag that says key, log the object with a little tag that says mouse, and then also I just want to take a look at the key down and key up flags and the mouse down and mouse up flags. What I noticed is that these logs for these objects is kind of useless, because I didn't realize this, but in the debugger, so we can go in the debugger really quick. These mouse events that you are seeing up here, I thought these were like snapshots of the state in time, but they're actually not. For instance, right now you see mouse up here, but if we go in here, you'll notice that everything here is erased, including the mouse up and mouse down, which looks kind of confusing because we see, we have mouse up set here, so why is this all zero? And right, this is all zero because of the erasing of the event after we're ready to kind of like recycle it. So the event data wipe, right? We're just going to erase everything. Now you might say that this belongs in a separate function, but the thing is we're only going to use this logic here, and we don't want to destroy the linear flow of the code unless we're going to use this exact logic in more than one place. If we're not going to use this exact logic in more than one place, it makes absolutely no sense to extract this into another method, increase the surface area of the code, and destroy the linear narrative. Like, just not a good idea. So event data wipe, right? That's this right here, right? And we do that after we're done using the event. Now, if we comment this out and go back in the debugger, you're going to notice a slightly different result. So let's click somewhere, like say in the middle, and now if we inspect the object, reopen it up, now you actually see some values, right? We got CX and CY have some values. Now, where's my, okay, yeah, there's my mouse up right there, right? And see now this mouse up flag that's set, oh, it's set here too, so that makes sense, right? But these values right here are kind of like snapshots. But when you are logging out an actual object like this that you can kind of like branch open, this is not actually a snapshot in time up here. These two lines are snapshots in time, but not this. And now going back over to our code over here, if we're gonna put that back in and see the difference once again. So we're gonna refresh this. We're gonna click somewhere in the center. So we see our mouse down and we see our mouse up, but then we open this and everything is set to 0, right? And even our mouse up and down, right? They're both set to 0. Once again, these are snapshots in time, but if it is an object that you are logging, it is not actually a snapshot in time. I didn't realize that because, a lot of JavaScript code you use tends to slice or otherwise copy arrays or data before it passes it to something else to try to avoid side effects in code. Because, when you have two objects with the same reference, but those objects are assuming that the data is not shared, you can end up with a whole bunch of weird, hard to find bugs. So people tend to sometimes copy data on the fly. But I want to be nice to the garbage collector, and I don't want to be constructing objects and having them just implicitly destroyed all over the place, because that's not going to convert nicely to C code if we do something like that. What else? Let's make sure that these are correct, these bitwise flags. So if I'm gonna screw up anything, it's gonna be these bitwise flags. But so key and mouse, they match mouse event, and this is keyboard event, so these flags are correct. Global event, right, because these are main event types, so global event.event type. I have these lined up so it's a little bit easier to see. And is going to be the thing that is only going to take it if the 2 bits are the same. So by having this 1 bit that we want to check for in this larger bit mask, okay, just making sure. I know I've kind of already said that. Okay, so marking the event as consumed is where we erase those bit masks. So the main bit mask, so the main event type, and then the sub event type, and then the event data wipe, which we already went over really quick. Also, a little note of what we are not erasing. So the variable type is going to be treated as constant. I don't think I declared it as constant, but it should be. Now the event type and subtype, right? We just want to make sure that we know what this wipes, because sometimes it can be, I don't want this function to be interpreted as a reset on the object, because that's not what it does. It doesn't completely zero initialize the object, or zero reinitialize the object. So what else do we have? So this, I think we went over this already. We haven't implemented this, but this is the texture as uniform controller. Well, this is the constructor, and this is the actual class. We've looked over this a few times, so I'm pretty sure it will work once we get to implementing it. But first, we just want to add some of our major uniforms and get them controlled by the editor, so that we can see some of the data changing in our shaders. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to implement some of the uniforms that the shader code is going to use and get a little bit more visual feedback, since we haven't seen much visual feedback for a while, and then we'll go from there.